Hello. You always with me. Just got closer. Something's been moved. Y'all right? Y'all okay back there? Okay. We're gonna call the Tuesday, June 15, 2021 meeting to order. We're gonna pause right now for a moment of silence. Thank you. Mrs. Hopper, has the public been made aware of our board meeting? Thank you. We welcome everyone to include the staff and the professional services at the meeting and the ones online. We welcome you to our meeting for June 15th. It's our regular board meeting. We're going to go down to the quorum has been established. And then we're going to go to our consent items. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion for that?
Madam Chair, I make the motion that we approve the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Neal. Thank you, Ms. Pridgeon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion has carried. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes for the regular meeting dated May 18, 2021. Do we have a motion for that meeting? For the minutes?
Madam Chair, I motion to approve those.
Thank you, Mrs. Foxworth.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Neal. Any questions?
Question.
All in favor, say aye.
Question.
Oh,
Question. The sponsor's name is not listed as being in attendance in our next meeting. But throughout the minutes, her name is mentioned as voting.
whose name is missing?
The sponsor?
It says they have her virtual. I was online.
Gotcha. I got you.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Okay, okay, we're gonna move on down for the reports from administration, review and action items. We're gonna begin with Mr. Gary Lane with the finance report updates.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'll start with the regular finance report. That's this report here. You also did receive a second report, which is the budget brief, which I'll mention in a minute. As noted on the report, May was a good month. When you compare last month's year-to-date expenses and revenues to this month's year-to-date expenses and revenues, our revenues outpaced our expenditures by just over $418,000. So that comparison is last month's year-to-date and this month's year-to-date. Also, as noted, our auditors have been in this week and last week, and I'm happy to report they've commented to several persons that things are going much better than last year, which I'm thrilled to hear from an independent source. We've worked very hard to get there. Before I head into my budget presentation, I'd just like to note a few things, if I may. I'm entering my 12th month as your Director of Finance, and I'd like to thank the Board of Education and Dr. Fay and the staff for all the support that I've had these past months and for the guidance and mentorship of your finance specialist, Donna Sullivan. This has all been greatly appreciated and very, very helpful. As I'm sure you realize, I came in during a very difficult stretch with both the pandemic and the continued resolution of the prior year's budget almost a year's worth of interim budget director, finance director, and retirement of key staff member in business office. But I agree with the auditors. We're in a much better place now than we are a year ago. We've dug into a 2-year-old budget. We've begun to put processes into place to establish protocols on how to get things done. And we've looked both back and forward, looking into next year's budget. We've looked at history going backwards, and we looked at needs going forwards. Our new employees, Angel and Matt, are coming along very well. I've worked with Donna, and we've defined areas of responsibilities for each of these persons, and we've put together a training guideline to get them up to speed as quickly as possible. I've also discussed with and for Ms. Sutherland a transition plan. With regard to the presentation I'm going to go into in a minute, much of it will be almost identical to the information that was sent home, just not in as much detail. Notwithstanding the opening and closing slides, there are only about 10 slides to go through. And again, a lot of that's going to be redundant. So we should be able to breeze through it rather quickly. I've tried to make it rather straightforward, but if anyone has any questions, please ask. I'll do my best to answer them. And if I can't answer them at the moment, I'll get back to you after the meeting as best I can. And lastly, I just wanted to touch base on the meeting of a mill. That's come up in some of the documentation I sent out, and also it's going to come up in tonight's presentation. Essentially, a mill is a rate of taxation. What a mill comes down to is really the value of the collected taxes in the county. Therefore, for example, if you have collected taxes of $8 million and we're requesting 168 mills, the value of each mill is approximately $47,619. Now, tax collection varies based upon the valuation of the properties in the county and the collection rate. And as such, the value of that mill goes up and down annually. So in projecting millage, we look at the actual taxes collected and provided to the district for this year. We calculate the millage and we estimate what the amount would be for next year. And we also calculate the state permitted increase in millage and what that impact would be on our budget. So I just wanted to give you that little definition ahead of time before we got into the presentation. So if I may, I will distribute a PowerPoint presentation, turn on the machine and try to go through the 10 slides that are new but familiar because of the information we provided earlier.
You'll have to tell me that twice.
Started.
Mhm.
I'll try to remain at the podium, but I tend to walk around, but I'll do my best to stay at the microphone. Again, we're here for the budget brief. I'm trying to make it both brief and a brief in the sense that it's an overview. So short in timeline, but an overview in what the data and the information is. So as we've discussed at prior meetings, we have a revenue-based balanced budget. Your budget starts with revenues. In order to get a balanced budget, revenues have to equal expenses. District has limited funding sources, as you'll see, and limited control over most of those funding sources. As such, as we've discussed at prior meetings, the annual budget begins as a revenue-based activity. We look at the amount of funding that we can anticipate receiving from the state. We look at the amount we can anticipate in local funding, including the local tax levy. And then we estimate what's called transfers. Now, transfers are monies which we expend in general fund that we either get separate funding for or we can charge to another fund at a later date. From there, we subtract out how much we need to set aside for salaries and fringe benefits. And that leaves behind the maximum amount of money we have available for our regular and operating expenses. So let's talk about state funding for a minute. Right now, we're looking at our revenues based upon the Senate projections. They're the most current projections. And the Senate projections provide revenues that they've already approved, but are under consideration by the House, but not approved by both sides yet. Senate projections were provided to us as a guideline. That's why we're using them. The state also provides to school districts a more detailed Educational Finance Act funding sheet. That's just to give you information that the Senate gives you a list of revenues. One of those revenues is the EFA, which is worth a lot of money, but there's a second sheet that gives you more details. And you saw that in your handout that was provided to the board previously. But I guess the important thing is the considerations. Now, both houses of the legislature met on June 8th to debate their funding proposals. The conference committees have been set up to meet and debate the final budget funding plan on June 21st, which is obviously, after today. The General Assembly will meet and to vote on the conference report. If necessary, both bodies will convene on June 29th to address any vetoes by the governor. Therefore, the Senate projections and the EFA funding breakdown that are provided and are used as support for this budget are considered tentative. If there are any changes to projections provided by the state, we would need to consider revisiting the 21-22 budget at a future meeting. But just want to give you a heads up where we are with funding. Usually this has all been done already, but the state's just running a little bit behind. So let's just do a little bit of a revenue synopsis. For 21-22, after taking into account the Senate revenue projections, the transfers, and the local levy, we need to subtract out or set aside our anticipated costs for salaries and fringe benefits. This leaves a maximum amount we have available for regular operating expenses in the amount of $6,049,000. As you can see there, if you look in the middle column where it says budgeted 21-22, total local funding, total state funding, transfers comes to $37 million. You subtract out the anticipated for salaries and fringe, and you have $6,049,000. Again, on a revenue-based budget, that's the maximum amount of cash you have in your hand to spend on all those other areas. Now, you may look at the right-hand side and say $820,000 difference. That's pretty big. It is. And I was concerned about it when I first looked at it. However, as I mentioned in my earlier comments, we did a rather deep dive over the past 2-3 year budget. Actually, I did a 5-year look back, and there were some adjustments that needed to be made in the development of prior budgets that would allowed us to adjust what was anticipated for revenues and what was anticipated for expenses. So next slides, I'm going to try to let you know it's okay. So let's look at the expenditure side. So revenues have to equal expenditures. And we know we've got $6,049,000 for all our operating expenses. When budgeting, one must take a step back and look at historical spending history. And we did that. We reviewed the actuals from 13-14 to the present day, almost an 8-year time period. And we find that the most we've actually ever spent in that 8-year time period on non-salary and fringe was in 2018-19, 3 years ago. That high watermark was $6,065,000, not that far away from what we have available for next year. It's only $15,000 difference. That was your high watermark. And essentially, the second highest watermark was 2 years prior to that at $5.7 million. So looking forward, when you would compare our actual spending patterns and our available funds for budgeting for non-salary fringe of $6,049,000, an amount equaling nearly the highest spending rate in the past 8 years, it should provide us with a level of assuredness that we have sufficient funds to meet our budget. So let's continue to look at what the expenses look like. So you take out your personnel and fringe. What constitutes the $6,049,000? Well, we have contracted services of almost 3.6. We have supplies of 2.2. Capital, miscellaneous other, and payments to other governments. So that's where your 6,049. Now, again, you look at the differentials, you see a lot of reductions. But again, I remind you that the 6,049 is just about equal to our highest spending level in 8 years. And also, I'd like to remind you that in looking back over the past 5 years of our actual budgeted monies, our actual expenditures, our actual revenues, there were certain adjustments that we were able to take into account in building this budget for 21, 22. And that's why, quite frankly, I would like to again thank the board and Dr. Lefay for allowing Ms. Sullivan to stick around, because I had a lot of questions about why these things were there. And she was able to tell me, well, the state stopped giving that revenue 4 years ago. I'm not, because when I looked at the revenue was there as a projection, but it wasn't there as an actual. So again, we try to do our true due diligence in historical and projected. Now, again, let's talk about millage. A portion of funding for a successful budget comes from local millage. Millage values change from year to year based upon factors such as assessed valuation and tax collection rate. And millage is an important factor in being able to provide long-term budget stability and success. And it allows the district to address and consider funding issues such as increasing salaries to attract and retain teachers and staff, and to look to the future in other areas such as technology, student support, staff training, and innovation. We can't remain stagnant in our revenue stream if we want to do those things that we need to attract and retain teachers, to do those things that we need to continue our innovation. We just spent a lot of money on technology, go to one-to-one. At some point in time, those devices are going to need to be replaced. If we don't look forward and plan to the future, we're not going to have the funds available to spend $1.7, $1.8 million on technology. That concerns me. So let's just take a quick look at a couple of numbers. If you look at the actual total expenditures of 14, 15, 16, 19, 20, 20, a 5-year period, you had an increase of $2.2 million, 6.5%. Your average daily membership went down. So what does that tell us? What story does this tell us? This tells us that regardless of whether our population goes down, our expenses go up. Now, as you know, our state revenue is tied into our population. So if our population goes down, our state aid goes down, but our expenses continue to go up because fuel goes up, electric goes up, supplies goes up, contracted services go up, everything goes up. If we don't give ourselves a raise in 9 years, we struggle. And in looking at where we are today, I think that's part of what we need to really consider. Give ourselves a break and help us not struggle as much. As you can see, the district is capped by state law on how much millage can be increased each year. Of note, by not moving ahead annually to take advantage of this permitted increase, the district loses not only the true value of those mills for the current year, but also the accumulated compounding value of the mills over time. That's why any financial expert will tell you start saving early. I don't care if it's $5 a month, $10 a week, whatever you can, because over time, it's a small amount every year, but over time, the compounding effect has a tremendous impact on you years down the road. We've not done that. We've not afforded ourselves that advantage. Let's look at what could have happened. Now, mind you, I only went back to 15, 16. I didn't go back to 12, 13. But if you just look at 15, 16 to 21, 22, again, our millage rate would have started in 15, 16 at 168. Now, the millage cap is what the state calculates us, the most we can increase our cap. So you multiply 168 by 1.62, and you come up with 2.72. Now, the way the state tells us is you have to truncate it. You can't round up. You don't round down, you truncate it. So anything to the left of the decimal point, you can take. Anything to the right of the decimal point, it goes away. So even while we were very, very close to 3 mills, we could only take 2. So if we had increased it by 2 mills, we would have gone to 170. Now, what's interesting is, even though you are reminded that expenses go up every single year. Yet, however, if you look at 16, 17, because of the economic situation that was outside of your control, the state formula permitted you to go up 0. So even if you sat here in 16, 17 and say, oh my God, we've got so many costs that are going up, I want to increase the millage, you couldn't, you weren't allowed, your hands were tied. That's why, in my opinion, you need to take advantage of those mill increases when you can. They're not that large. Look, they're two, three. The most you have is 4. If we had taken advantage of these mills over that time period, we would be up to 16 mills. We'd be up to probably 18 or 20 mills if we had started back earlier. How much more money would we have in the bank today? How much more money would we have to increase teacher salaries, to provide some more training, to give to technology, to buy more computers or to buy better software? How much money would we have? Well, based upon our 21-22 estimated mill value, we'd have $810,000 additional in this year's budget alone. To me, that's a lot of money that we could use to do those things. We talk about, again, attracting and retaining teachers. We could use those to add to the local amount that we provide to the state salary schedule to say, hey, teachers, this is a valuable place, come here. The County of Marion, when they met with us in the Education Committee, one thing, they mentioned 2 things. 1, consolidate your high school. 2, pay teachers more. We put together a strategic plan that's being worked on. The idea of consolidating your high school was talked about 3-4 years ago. That's in process. Where are we in process to help our salaries? This is our process to help our salaries. We need to look at this on a regular basis. And again, take those baby steps every year to get us where we need to be. So considering that we've not had a millage increase since incorporating into a single district in 2012, we are respectfully requesting an increase as permitted by statute. The actual requested increase in local taxes is derived by the estimate of the millage below. Now again, your millage between 2012 and 13 to 2021 was 168. Our estimated mill value this year is 50,629. If we go up by 2 mills, you have an increase of $101,000 or 1.19%. Now, when I've done this for other boards of education, of course, the first question I say, my God, we're going up. I don't want to raise taxes. What's the impact on the taxpayer? Well, according to my sources, the median property tax in Marion County is $440 per year for a home with the median value of $82,500, making the tax rate per thousand equal to 0.003. So an increase of 1.19% on the median property tax of $440 equates to an annual cost increase of $5.24. Now, mind you, the median is simply if you listed all the values of all the homes and you just pick the middle one. So it's not the average, it's not the one that shows up the most, it's the one directly in the middle. So I said, well, hey, listen, I don't know where folks have their home values. Well, let's just use the median as an example. So if the median home value is on the left-hand side of 82.5, what happens if we doubled it? What happens if we tripled it? What kind of impact would that have on the local taxpayer? So a 2 mil increase on the median home obviously would be $5.24 a year. If you double that on a home value of $165,000, the annual cost is $10.47. If you triple it, if someone's living in a home in Marion valued at $247,500, their increase, the extra out-of-pocket money per year is $15.71. So I'll leave it there. We're asking for an increase of 2 mills to help grow the district, to help meet district goals, to help us on a path that'll provide the Marion County School District with a plan, a financial plan to meet those long-term goals, to maybe get to a place where not only can we say, you know what, Marion County is a wonderful county. Just drive downtown, it's a beautiful town. We can also say to the folks, hey, listen, we're going to pay you a salary. You can go downtown and buy stuff. I think that's important. So that's just my take on it. I appreciate you listening. I'll answer any questions. Again, if I can answer them right immediately, I will. If not, I'll get back to you. So thank you very much for your time.
Madam Chair, just want to thank Mr. Lane and his team for pulling together the budget. It was a very difficult process. As you're aware, a budget was never approved last year because the budget was never approved at the state level. So the reality of working off a budget that was 2 years old presented in itself a challenge, and especially with changes and so many unknowns at the state level. And so we appreciate the team of being able to go back and looking at the historical data, so that when we built this budget, it was on more actual numbers. And Ms. Elaine, again, thank you and your team for doing a great job.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fay.
Are there any questions? Can we start over with Reverend Brown? You have any questions or comments?
And it's up in there, yeah, thank you.
Ms. Neal? Ms. Bridget?
It was an excellent presentation, and I could understand just about everything.
Good, that I nailed it.
And I didn't read ahead.
Thank you.
Mrs. Foster?
I just have a few, some little comment. Great job.
Thank you.
And maybe you can get back with me on these. One of them is when you went to the Marion County, the property tax. Did you take that from the city or the county itself, like as a whole?
County.
County as a whole, not the city then?
Right.
Okay, I think it's that one. And when you said attract and retain teachers, what about the people that still here, say like our administration staff? How do we do their raises? Like somebody like BCR, just to call out her name.
We have a
What-
salary schedule for all staff, and you can enhance the salary schedules locally. And with the certificated or teaching staff, the state provides a salary guide, but we provide a local enhancement to that. And that local enhancement, I don't think has been changed in a long
The
time.
local supplement is around 800.
Can you pull your mic?
Well, mine won't go anymore.
Okay.
Of course, as Mr. Lane explained, for teachers, the state does send the salary schedule. Where the difference comes in is the local supplement that your communities are able to give the supplement, the base salary. And so like a supplement, local supplement in Marion will look totally different than a local supplement in Orland per se, because it's really based on your tax base. But to answer your question, for morale factors, we know that we talk so much about recruitment and retaining, and that is so important. But we also know that when we are recruiting and retaining, we still have to keep the people that are already in play
Exactly.
as well as a morale factor. So when we talk about changes, we want to impact all employees.
Yeah, good
Thank
point.
you, Dr. Bede, on that. So say like if I wanted to get like a report of in the last 2 years, or let's say 3 years, because we're through the pandemic, of how many people actually received raises. So I remember you said 1 year we focused on bus drivers, then was teachers, then was cafeteria staff. What about administration staff or somebody like Ms. Harper?
We normally, last year, no one, because of operating off of, everyone gets a step on the normal, I know, under normal circumstances, everyone gets a step. Every year you go up on the schedule. But what you're talking about is trying to move our schedules, meaning that when the budget will allow, we try to look at different classifications. For instance, at one point we had technology specialists that were leaving our district. They were going to private industry. That year, we looked at that schedule and moving that schedule up a few steps. And so when the budget allows, we do look at individual groups. I think the next group that I did speak on was the instructional assistants, and as well as the competitiveness of our administrative salaries. We've looked at bus drivers, we've done food service, and we've done some specialist positions. But we have a schedule, and I can provide you with a copy that was given to the board before, and it shows you each year which schedule we've moved.
Right, and on the schedules, with every year of experience, there is an increase. So just as for a matter of clarity, as Dr. Bethea said, this past year, everyone stayed where they were frozen. The state of South Carolina said, take all your teaching staff for next year and not only move them up to where they would have been this year, but then move them to where they would have been in 21, 22, had they not been held down. So that's going to happen for all them. And in conversation with Dr. Bethea, we didn't think it would be fair to not treat everyone the same. So we're doing the same thing with everyone else. So everyone will see those advances in next year's budget. So while you didn't address a salary schedule per se, because there is with movement an increase, because people will now move, actually two years experience, everyone will see an increase.
So this year, we're not bringing any schedule to say we want to schedule a move because right now, we're trying to move everyone up to where they should be. But I will say that those movements of our non-certified staff are local movements. And therefore, that's when the funding and the budget and having those revenues are so important.
That
The
comes out of your
state,
pocket.
the state takes care of teachers, but if you're not a teacher, then we have to take care of them. And that's where we need to make sure that we're bringing in the revenue to be able to maintain, because that's a morale factor of you get, a raise and I don't get a raise, because they don't understand, well, this money comes from one part and the other. They don't understand the behind the scenes. All they know is their check look different from your check. And so our goal is to continue to maintain a level of consistency of certified and non-certified. We try to move up the other ones too. That was not always the case, but that is our goal. But again, there has to be the revenue there to be able to do it.
I think y'all answered it right now. Mr. Davis?
I got a question. And you probably already answered it, but I'm just gonna answer it again. The $820,564. On here it was 565. And then on the sheet at the back said expense summary. Is that the breakdown of how you came up with that 820? 565 or 564?
You're talking about on the millage sheet?
There's a sheet in the back of my package.
I don't have that. It's not in my. Oh, I got it. It's on.
The question, okay, over here you have that 820, 565 down here, for the, decrease from 21 to 22.
Mr. Davis, I think we compared two different things.
Okay,
That 810 is the amount of money that we could have brought in if we had applied millage across the year. That 810, they're just close numbers. I think you're looking at a millage rate.
820,
Exactly. That's
Okay.
totally different. That 810 though was the millage. And when you go over, I think what he's talking about, and where he's looking at is the summary of the savings we need. So he's looking at millage and then how we deduct the deduction. They're just coincidentally close in the 800, but they have nothing to do with that. They're not really.
okay. So that sheet that you just, what I just showed you, okay. This sheet here, can you explain this sheet? then? Yes.
This provides everyone is look at the top part.
Mhm.
Bottom part. Bottom.
Right.
This part does. This breaks out. This spreadsheet. This year.
Mhm.
that becomes-
Okay.
that This summary.
So that's 6,000, 049.67. Is when you bring it from 20 to 21, and then 21 to 22.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
when you look at the revenue,
Mhm.
take out what salaries and benefits, not- This sheet here shows you a summary of the six of this shows you
Mhm.
a function.
Okay, so that's a big,
David, what in practice, looking at the budget, doing a crosswalk from one year to another and determining, well, these are the revenues that we have brought in. And these are expenses that we brought in, as we crosswalk across 2 years. These are highest expenses that we have. So in essence, that's the threshold. Over several years, this is the highest. There was a differential between that of the 820.
right.
And so with that, going through and making whatever adjustments in terms of, taking out, anything that shouldn't have been in there in terms of if there was a cost that was no longer a cost.
Okay, more fine tuned.
Yes.
Okay.
So we get the six.
Mhm. Right.
This number, right? So this is the big one.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mr. Lang, excuse me, you get that.
I'm sorry. So just as an aside, just to check things, on Friday, I ran a report and said, where do we stand today with our expenditures? We would have to spend $600,000 in the month of June in non-salary, non-health benefit to come near the $6 million. And I don't think that's gonna happen because it's already halfway through. It was already, Friday was the 11th. We only got, handful of days left. So that's why when I look at even this year, granted it was a pandemic year, but that's still a huge differential because we still needed to make expenditures throughout the year.
Okay. One last question.
Sure.
When you begin with the finance, you were saying where we was at before you got to the budget part, the last part, brother.
Okay, on the
At
regular
the
budget.
end, at the end of the month of June, once we pay all our bill, once we go into July, and we will have all our last year bill paid, we still would be in an okay place.
We're projecting, yes, it will be in a positive balance.
Okay.
And, as
That's a
another
good
thing,
question.
just as an,
That's a good question.
that's a great question. Because I lay awake about that because I'll let you also know that we struggled for most of this year to balance the budget. We worked really, really hard looking at the budget, looking at a lot of different things. There were adjustments that we needed to make going back to 2013, 14, 15, 16. Almost every single year we had to go back and make some adjustments, which impacted this current year's budget. And it wasn't, but we finally got to a point now, if you look at those sheets, your revenues and your expenses on the far left-hand side, they balance. We're pleased that we were able to get there.
Okay.
And we feel good of where we're going to be. Now, I will give you a little heads up though. Our expenses in June are going to be a little high because at the end of the year, when folks retire or go to another district, we have what's called a payout because we collect their salaries, and we basically done their salaries for enough money to pay them in 2 payments in July and 1 payment in August. If you leave on June 30th, it's been our tradition here to give those staff members who are leaving their July and August payments on June 30th. Now, you're not required to do that. You can say, you know what, we're still going to pay in July and August. And I'm hearing arguments on both sides. We decided to keep it the same way this year, and investigate it and see if it makes sense to us. Because that's what you need to do with anything. You look into something and decide what you're going to do, and then you take it on. But then after time, you evaluate it and you say what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be adjusted. And that's really what a budget process is. It's an annual adjustment, an annual look, an annual review. We went further back because we needed to go further back to get to where we needed to be for this coming year.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Dr. Beck.
Okay, Dr. Basay, I had 3 questions.
Okay.
The bonuses that we had talked about going back to, you're gonna address that in your report?
No, I can address it now.
Okay.
The bonuses, as you're aware, we gave a very small bonus in December. And I communicated our interest to do an additional bonus with staff. We did put that in our ESER2 application. They were quick with ESER1, and so we thought they would be quick in ESER2. I don't feel comfortable in administering the bonus without our final approval, and we are still waiting for that approval. So what we have gone back and decided that based on the timing now, that we may, if approved, then go back and that will start the school term with that. And that is a good morale booster, what we feel. But until we get an approval from the State Department of Ed, we prefer to pay for compensation. I don't want to call them bonuses, compensation. Any type of extra compensation that we provide. I prefer not to pay for it out the local funds, especially if it's approvable in our federal funds. So we did put it in our plan, but we have not gotten our final approval yet.
Okay,
And I just do not feel comfortable spending without that stamp that it is approved.
that's understood.
Yeah.
I know we said that in June, we will have everything paid. That means that,
We do something called a cruise. Can you explain cruise?
what I want to make sure of is that there is no bills out there that we are behind on paying.
Oh, I wouldn't know that.
Okay.
That's a great question. Because we did come into that situation over the past year and a half, 2 years. We've addressed those. To the best of my knowledge, we've addressed all of them. I can only, there's things you know, there's things you don't know, there's things you know you don't know, and there's things you don't know you don't know. If that last group we have difficulty with, the things I don't know, I don't know. But to the best of my knowledge, we're up to date with payments for folks. And again, my understanding of the process here is that on June 30th, you close out all your orders, which is a different process than I'm accustomed to. But I understand that that's the way things are done, and that's the way things are going to happen. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll be evaluating all the open orders. And what happens is if someone needs something that an order has been open for, but it hasn't been, the service hasn't been performed, rendered, or delivered, what'll happen is we'll have to cancel that order. And then they'll do another order with next year's money. Because the idea is, and if you think about it, the other way to leave things open could be considered somewhat messy. Now, the auditor has said, hey, listen, if it's going to close out in July, it's really not a big deal. Okay, so you could, that's less, harmful to do. If you know it's going to be paid in July 15th, it's going to be finished up. But anything that goes beyond that is really not a good idea. But again, the practice here is we close things on June 30th. And that's our intent to follow that. And again, to the best of my knowledge, we're up to speed. And we'll close that in good shape.
And Mrs. White, to go back, and I think back now why you probably asked that question, there was a time where our finance department, and I know that Mr. Lane had a learning curve, where we were late on several payments, but we have that, and we do pay our bills, and we find out later that if there's a concern that comes up, we address it, but We don't ever want to get to a point of being known to have outstanding balances and second payments. So I think that those have been
That's,
addressed.
Right.
that
That
was,
was-
that was the question.
I thought you
Valid-
meant what bills do we have current right now? And I'm
No, no,
thinking
no,
they go
but I
directly
mean,
to
I like
finance.
that. I like knowing that how he was gonna handle the end of the
Mhm.
year
Mhm.
Right.
report, meaning that June 30th. So
Right.
I like that
Right.
information.
Any valid bill that's been presented based upon a purchase requisition should be closed on June 30th. We do have times where, folks have incurred expenses on behalf of the Board of Education without going through the proper channels and without perhaps having a requisition ahead of time. And those we have to work through, and that's a matter of education, which we are going to address in the coming year. We have a plan to roll out a program where we're going to have a finance member go to each building quarterly and meet with the bookkeepers, and they'll address any questions that the bookkeepers have, and also be available to coach them up on anything that's not bookkeeper related. But we want to have a presence in the buildings, and that's one thing we want to be able to achieve with the staff members you've provided. We've already had this discussion with the staff members here, put together a plan. So I just thought it would be a tremendous outreach to actually have someone from the finance committee knock on your door once a quarter, say, how are things going? Let me talk to you if you have any issues. So that's one of the things we would like to, I guess we should have mentioned that earlier. It's an
Absolutely.
outreach thing.
Absolutely, because I think it has been a difficult year because there has not been any bookkeeper meetings this year. And you can't hold people to expectations if you have not properly met and trained. And so I did ask them to put in, something where we have that regular communication with our bookkeepers. Because I do believe our people want to do
Yes,
what's
they do.
right if we let them know what those expectations are.
And as mentioned in the presentation, it's just been a very tough year for a lot of different things, trying to come up to speed and again, look back and some of those things that need to be adjusted over the year. But we're in a much better place. I'm very anxious to get going into next year. I think we've got a lot of good things in process.
My final question, the first reading approval. Now, does the request for the increase in the millage, is that to be assumed is in the budget or?
Assumed it's in
Yes.
the budget.
Yes,
unless
it's
you-
subsumed within.
Unless you are going a different direction, you approve without that component. But our request is for it to be comprehensive.
The numbers presented include that increase.
Okay. Did anyone come up with any additional questions based on the additional information that we received?
Dr. Patel, he said something about waiting on the state to extend the budget to make sure, something about the not
ESSER
compensations.
funds. ESSER funds.
ESSER funds. ESSER funds, you said?
ESSER. Those
Yes,
are,
ma'am. So if you would have one, just hypothetically, if you went on and did the, not bonuses, but compensation, could you pull it out of that money that we really didn't have much to do with the CARE Act? You could do that?
that is the CARES Act.
That is
ESSER
the
is CARES.
Okay, I just,
Yeah.
want- I'm always
I'm
thinking like
sorry,
the
no.
bad.
ESSER funds are your CARES Act.
Okay,
Yeah, for education, the public, their CARES, but for Department of Ed, they call it ESSER.
so because it was during the pandemic and we kind of like doing compensation for that time,
It
you
has to
still
be
can't
state approved.
state approved.
And Miss, if you all tell us to move forward, I don't feel comfortable spending to the amount that we put out there without having approval.
Gotcha.
They're asking you. to-
I'm sorry. My
You might
bad.
want to put it on the other side because you kind of lean to that
Well, see, I
side.
can't see her.
Okay.
It was like 3, 4 people.
And then I have to
moving this-
lean in to talk in my mic. It won't go any farther.
All right, we're at the review and action for first reading approval for 2021, 2022 fiscal year proposed budget. Do we have a motion for that item?
Madam Chair, I make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Pridgen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. Do we have questions, discussions? None. Okay, all in favor for the approval of the first reading of the 2021-22 fiscal year proposed budget, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. Okay, this budget's been approved. Thank you. Okay. Next is our operations report updates with Mr. Leon Sturkey.
Good evening, Mrs. White, members of the board, Dr. Batay. The June's operations report, the facility study began on yesterday. Members of the staff from Brownstone was in district on yesterday at Eastern Primary School. They're going through and looking at all of the systems throughout our schools. Flooring, HVAC, electrical services, and then they'll provide a grade. What is an A? If it's an A, that means it's an item that could be done further down the road. If it's an F item, that means that's something that we need to address immediately. Hopefully that will be able to provide information to the district as to things that we need to act upon now. Hopefully it's going to take them about 2.5, 3 months to complete the study, but I think it will be comprehensive and we will have some valuable information that we can move forward with. Secondly, in reference to the South Side and Britain's Neck, the Office of School Facility has everything that they need now. They have sent the Department of Transportation out to both of those sites. They have to do an evaluation, and then it goes back before the State Board of Education. One item that is not mentioned that I need to talk about is the return to 5-day plan for the district and the continuity of services. As you all know, the district is working on a plan. We will have that plan to be able to post on our website. Our plan is to be able to go back to school 5 days starting in August, and to be able to provide the services that we've been providing prior. I think if I remember correctly, we're talking about somewhere around 200 students that may be virtual, which will keep us right around the 4,100 student population in our schools. Lastly, for me, is the items that I will need to review and consent would be the painting services, student insurance, and pest control. And that will need executive session instead of legal and contractual matters.
Madam Chair, I just want to make one comment, not to get into a lot of detail, but I think I mentioned at our last superintendent's meeting that I stayed back and talked with our state superintendent for a little while on 2 different matters. And one of them, we talked about the consolidated high school and some of the needs of the district, and the other, we were talking about more of the academic piece. But at that time, she shared that she would look into a few things. Well, yesterday, cell phone rang, and it was Superintendent Spearman, and she is working on trying to support us in our efforts of finding some capital funds to help support. So not a lot of detail at this point, but just wanted to give you that information. She did follow up on stating that she would be looking into funding sources to support us in that.
That's wonderful news. Say it again.
In short, I spoke with Superintendent Spearman at the last superintendent's meeting, and I was speaking with her about 2 things, about resources that they can provide to the district, because we wanted to be proactive. And then I talked to her about some of our facilities needs and our desire to have a consolidated high school and repurpose some our existing high schools. And at that time, she said that she would look into what support that she could give. Just out of the blue on yesterday, she called and stated that she'd made some progress. It was making some progress, and she wanted to touch base with me, but not a lot of detail right now. But at least she has in her queue if she is able to pull down some capital improvement funds from the state to help us in our consolidated high school efforts.
Thank you for that. Great news. Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Sturkey. We'll
thank
see
you,
you in
Mrs.
executive session. Oh, I'm sorry. Does anyone have any questions? I apologize. Let's start here with Mr. Davis. Mrs. Foxwell.
I'm actually.
Okay. Mrs. Pritchard, Ms. Neal, Kevin Brown. Okay, we'll see you in executive session.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Next is our human resource report updates.
I do have,
Okay.
a need. Ms. Grant is not, with us this evening, but I do have a request for, executive session for personnel.
Okay. All right, the next is your report. Of the thing.
Again, I want to thank our board members just for your support this year. It has truly been a challenging year, but I think that your support has, been very well received among our staff. Um, I will say that right now we're in a place where we knew we would be, that most of the state is in, where our, I don't want to say learning loss, because I don't know if kids lose learning, or should I say our academic recovery needs are greater than our resources right now. And what I mean by that, the number of students that need additional support this summer is massive, more than we've ever had. And so based on that, high schools already had criteria of credit recovery that is pretty much led by the state. You have to have a certain grade level threshold to be able to recover a course. They've applied that same model to our middle schools because there were numerous students. And unfortunately, the staffing is not there. We were able to do a lot, but we probably almost needed all of our staffing to work for the number of students that we have. But unfortunately, staff have been dealing with COVID. They've been closed up, and many people are just at the point of wanting to take their own vacations. And so those commitments to teach summer programs is not there. So we're very limited on the number of children that we can serve on site. Limited not because of the desire, not limited because of the money, because we have the CARES Act, ESSER funds, but limited because we don't have the manpower of the personnel. What we are looking at doing as far as the second part of the summer, it may not help a child in terms of being able to be promoted, but it may be able to help with some deficits. I think I spoke with you 2 months ago about the possibility of some online tutoring services. Then I think I spoke to you all about that. And so we're looking at that possibility for some of our 3rd through 8th graders. It will not help with promotion because there are some students, the scores are so low that they need that second exposure. But what it will do is enrich those students and give them a jump start into the school year. So that is something that we're looking at for students that were not able to be served in the traditional summer school program. Summer school did start yesterday. So far, so good. Almost all of our campuses this week now have school. Am I correct? On the daily campus? Except high school starts tomorrow. And so every campus this summer will have children. And the arts program is going well. That's housed at ACT. We're looking at doing a final, I guess you call it a, what do you call it? Program at the end of the arts camp to show what the students have done during that program. So we look forward to that. And we're looking at the first week of July for that. And so we'll keep you updated. And so things are just going well. Our next commitment right now is getting that safe start or return to school plan. And we have to post that, and we get that posted online just to give, the public, knowledge of how we're planning to come back. That is a requirement of ESSER 3. It has not been a requirement of any other ESSER funds, but with ESSER 3, by June 24th, you do have to post your plan on terms of how you're returning in the fall. We are looking forward to being back. I won't say normal because there are some things that have been very positive in our changes for students, but we're ready for some consistency is the word that I'm using. And so we look forward to doing that when we start back in the school year. We're planning to start back with the regular calendar. Another thing that I wanted to mention, we're also looking at a possibility. Some of you may remember in Mullins, they had a Star Academy, and in Marion, there was a Push Academy. And those were models that were structured for overage middle school students. Research shows that when kids stay in middle school too long and they're overage, all we're doing is adding to the dropout rate. What a Push Academy and a Star Academy, those models do, it helps you to make up those courses that you have not done well. It does require some summer commitments as well. We have not committed to that, but we are looking for a very small population. When I say small, I think the last time we did a Push Academy in Marion, it was around 20 students, 18 to 20 students. So it's not a large population. And I can't remember how many were in Star Academy, but it was small. But we're just looking at ways for students that may struggle, just being creative, just to get them over that hump. Because again, the research shows when you have overage students in your middle schools, they drop out at least by that 9th grade year. And so that is something else that we're looking at. Another request that I have as we come to the final stages of our strategic planning, a session for the board, recommending that session for sometime in August. And so that's something that the board can talk about. If you need to have it later, that is fine. But I, at least want to have it sometime at the start of the school year, just so that we go over the strategic plan. We talk about, some of the goals and the platforms of the board. Prefer that to be an all-day session if possible. And so a decision will need to be made on that. And the very last thing is graduations went very well. We will have a graduation debrief just on, we don't do comparisons publicly, but we do know that there's some positive things in some graduations and some not so positive in others. But we're thankful that both graduations went very well. But we want to pull on the strengths of the schools that had one sector that may have been a little bit better than another, from another school that may have this component that was a little bit better. So we'll have that debrief as well. And that is it. I will not read the other part of the report, the written part. That's fairly self-explanatory, but I think that is it.
Madam Chair, question for Dr.
Yeah.
Based upon you saying that we're gonna have kids on the campus, will we have a nurse and an SRO on the campus as well?
Any other questions for Dr. Bethea? I do, Dr. Bethea. Couple.
Oh,
Pull your mic to you.
I just forget. Can you hear me
I
now?
can hear
But see,
you.
now I'm looking at you, I can't see you. I'm a visual
Well,
talker.
we can hear you though.
Okay, you can see me and hear me. All right. So the summer school thing, I literally was approached with an issue. I was able to reach out to Miss O'Reilly, and Miss Sweeney was really nice to help. But I need to understand, I do know that we are limited, but we are also doing other programs like the Art Academy and everything during the summer year.
Yes.
Now, I can't speak for every child. I wanted to speak for the child that the mom that reached out to me, but not knowing that the policy was only set and forced for the high school, and we trickled it down to the middle school for our convenience. Is
No.
there a way for it? It was always set for the middle school?
The policy wasn't set because of convenience. It was set because of staffing.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so it was set because of staffing, but because the letters went out to the parents, and I guess just to give it, so in case somebody else get a call, the letters went out to parents. These children knew where they were standing at throughout the year, whether they were passing or failing. And some parents didn't get on it as they should have, or maybe didn't get on board to getting the work turned in. So they were not promoted to the next grade. So some of them knew they were going to summer school, but they had to have a certain average to get there. But our letters didn't state that. Am I correct? Our letters didn't say, hey, you got to have a 50 to go to summer school. You have to be here in order to go to summer school. They didn't find out until they were calling yesterday to get their child in there or something. I don't know.
Everyone that was invited to summer school received a letter of invitation.
Okay, so it was invite. Oh, okay, so, but when they were told that their child wasn't being promoted, they never was told, hey, they have to meet, he or she has to meet a certain criteria to get in there or invite, because I wouldn't even know that we invited kids.
That's a system that has always been in place in every place that I've been. Summer school at the high school is totally different than summer school at the lower level. Now, with high school, years ago, parents would call, sign kids up, you had a pay system, and then the school could recommend kids. It was just a little different. Now summer school has been more of a recovery. And you have to have a certain average to recover a class. If you're an English 1 student and you have an average of a let's just say a 25, well, in 4 weeks, English 1, you can't recover the content of a year-long English 1. And that's just one example.
That would be
Just
for
one
high
example.
school only.
That would be for high school.
Okay.
But for middle school, when you look at the number of teachers that signed up for middle school, let's say you have a ratio of 20-1. Let's say if you have 6 teachers that sign up, that means that we can only invite 120 students. So we can't have summer school and 50 kids in the class. We have a safety hazard, we have issues. So when we know our number of teachers, we have to make sure the ratio fits in with the staffing. What I'm saying, this year, we have 6 teachers and they each have 20 in a summer school classroom, that's 120. But our numbers say we need 220 kids in summer school. We just can't bring in the extra 100 if we don't have the staffing to man. And
I
so they had to
understand.
have parameters. And so because they had to have parameters, they took the state approved guidance from high school of having that 50 or higher and applied it to the middle school to determine, because we didn't want a system where I want a parent, you had to have a system. When you don't have a system in place, Ms. Foxworth,
Right.
you have issues. And you can't have it where I picked that one, you don't have criteria. Criteria had to be established because you had to show that you had a fair system.
Right, well, I guess you didn't get what I was saying, Dr. Faye, because I understand the criteria and you have to have it in order. But to have a criteria that we don't even have in place for the middle school, that's what I need us as board members to come up with something, or we get together and do a criteria for the middle school, because to come to find out, because there's not enough teachers to teach summer school, kids are gonna be held back. And of course, I'm not into promoting a child that's not right. That's not me personally. But when you get a parent that can bring you letters, or people that bring you letters saying, hey, they said that this person was gonna go to summer school. Hey, my son or my daughter is not doing well. And then when they were told that you have to be invited, because one of my responses that I received yesterday, and I was happy with everything I got, but it was also one is up to the principal's discretion. Now to hear something like that, it's like, okay, so how did the principal pick the people?
And see, that's why you have that criteria to
Right.
fit it. See how that just.
It was just crazy to me, so I was just like,
Exactly.
hold up, I'm gonna.
That's
try
why
not
you
to
don't
ask.
want a system where somebody just picks, and that's why you have to establish parameters. But Mrs. Foxworth, summer school at middle and elementary schools, anytime that we've had summer school in Marion County, it is not parents just saying, I want my child to go.
They're
In
invited.
most systems, you look at students that are failing, and I hate to say it, but math and reading are the driving forces. Not that the social sciences are not important,
Right, right.
but students that are normally failing math and reading, and it is always through a letter of invitation. Anytime we've had a summer school, and when you mentioned the arts program that you realize, well, unfortunately, our band teacher, the arts program are being manned by arts teachers, the band teacher, the art teacher. Those people are not reading teachers. So unfortunately, we couldn't cancel that program and put them in the middle school to teach. The art teacher and the band teacher aren't going to know how to teach reading. Our kids they have deficits in reading and math. That's what we're tackling at the elementary and middle school.
Oh, no, personally, I'm not trying to get on just one issue. I just wanted to better understand of how you do, because I know the high school rules, because it's in a policy. But when it comes down to middle school, the middle school uses the high school rules, their adoption policy to get through to this time. So is there somewhere we can put in place for the middle school and elementary school, so when they come up, they can go to that book and say, well, you know what? They're right. It's in the book. It's not in the book right now. Right now, it's just, we don't have enough teachers, so we can't teach them. So this is the criteria we're using. But if they can go to the policy book, because I have a sister, she used to live on policy books. And if you can show it, it's proof. If I have proof of it, then you have to go with it. So if I was the parent, you have to show me right that it went for the middle school and not the high school, and my child would have to go.
Well, the state says, the state says when you don't meet the criteria, you're retained. And so it's
Right.
not, the state requires summer school for high school only. So the option of summer school is at the district level. And
Gotcha.
so summer school, when we offer it, I hate to use the word as a courtesy of the district, but summer school is required for those high schools, those Carnegie unit credit bearing courses. Anytime that we do summer school at lower levels, because we do it some years and we don't. Sometimes it's based on funding, sometimes it's based on need. So it is not a requirement. So it is an extra that we're doing. So in terms of establishing the guidelines, it is really based on the need. This year, because it was an odd year of kids being in school 2 days, out of school, the learning deficits are significant. And so the numbers are much higher. And the reality of it is not enough. You know, you all can draft a policy, but at the end of the day, if we don't have the staff in the Spotsboro, we can't hold it. We cannot bring in more children than we have staff. And that's why I mentioned that we're going to try to do something virtually, offer that in July. And so we can work on establishing guidelines, but the reality is your staffing is going to drive the students we can bring in. Ms. Foxworth, do know that if we could bring in, I think I may have said that earlier, if we could bring in every teacher to teach this summer, we would, because we have that great need. But we can't, all we can do is ask, we increased our pay this summer. We normally have been 30 an hour due to CARES Act. We increased it to 5. I'm just gonna be honest, we have a neighboring district that is 35 miles away. They have increased double of what we're paying. They cannot find teachers. People, I hate to say it, they have doubled what we are paying and they still can't find teachers. How do I know? They tried to contact ours. And I had to contact that superintendent, to say, no, we can't find our own, so we can't help you man yours. It's not a Marion County problem. Teachers are burned out. They have been doing virtual and no one is committing. If we could do a second session of, we talked about that, a second session of summer school. Right now, we had to change our schedule for summer reading camp. Why? Because the teachers for summer reading camp said, we'd rather come in on Fridays than to work in July. I'm not going to teach summer reading camp if we're going into July. So we're doing those the whole month of June, and they'll be finishing. So we have one building that is open on Fridays just to get that done, because none of the teachers wanted to work into June. They want their June off, and that's unfortunately the reality of this summer.
Okay, I just needed a more understanding for this stuff. I appreciate it.
But we wish we had more, and we wish we could bring in more, but the personnel drives it.
The next one was the start and the push. You say you're gonna work on something like that for Marion and Murray.
Yes, we'll probably have one countywide push program. And it worked well. I do know our success rate in Marion, because I work very closely in helping to develop that program, and we had 82% passage rate of kids getting back on track for graduation. So I know that's good statistics.
That's excellent. What about, I heard earlier, we go back to regular, try to do 5 days coming up the next school year. But we're gonna still stay competitive with 200 children on virtual. Is that open or closed? Did you already open those applications or close the applications? So we already know.
We have curriculum sent out something last week just to confirm with the parents, explain the model a little bit more. But as of last week, there were 200. They still can opt out of that until June 24th. So if they change their mind on going virtual, they have until June the 24th, and that was in the communication that they received. And we have cut out, we are cutting out kindergarten and first grade.
I'm sorry.
And we're cutting,
And
and we're not hosting, we decided not to do kindergarten and first grade. I just struggled with that. That is such a time where you're learning the foundations of reading. And I just feel that at those ages, you need to be up close and personal with teachers.
no reason to stop me.
Well, we can come back, but let us go around a little bit more. You have anything? Okay. Okay. Ms. Neal?
For clarity on, I guess, stipends or something for teachers that we had talked about. And I believe it was said it was on hold.
Yeah. Dr. Fay said after they get the approval, the final approval from the district to use the ESSER funds.
Yeah.
That's when, and they'll begin upon approval, assuming approval, the first of the school year, calendar year.
Okay, so there were no, I don't know if you call it extra or how it's classified. Um, above salary, there was no teachers that received any monies beyond, just regular salary.
No, not, we did the stipend at Christmas, and then we put in for, the $1,000 in our CARES Act, our ESSER funds, and what we have not received that approval yet. They are much slower with ESSER 2 approvals. ESSER 1 was approved within a week, but ESSER 2, they've been slow with those approvals.
ESSER
And it-
1 was first semester.
It was where we did technology, most of those funds went to technology. But ESSER 2 has more of, we talked about like multi-purpose room, if we needed to add that to McCormick, North Mullins, and I was told because it's more involved and has the capital piece that they are slower in approving. But we do have that. I do know the budget probably couldn't hold $1,000, so Ms. Lane, I don't, I don't think that, but I don't know if it could hold a lesser amount. We'll have to look, but what we put in there was for the 1,000.
I have a question. I think it's probably best explained in.
Okay.
Executive session.
Okay.
Reverend Brown?
No.
Okay. You still have your questions?
I don't remember it. I was so rudely interrupted.
If you think of it, we'll,
Not interrupt.
if you think of it, just
I'll
anytime.
call you.
Yeah, no, I don't want you, I hope you don't think I was.
You did. You like literally stopped me from
Well, I
talking.
mean, there really is some things about how long we can entertain the table.
We gotta
I
get
didn't
it.
make that up. Did I make that up? Y'all know, I didn't make that up. Well, you can ask the attorney later on, or he can nod to you. There are things about how long you can hold the conversation at the table.
But I do,
apologize.
but
did
I
not.
do want to say to Ms. Foxworth, for kids that were not able to go to summer school, that's why we're trying to do that virtual jump start camp. That's the population that we're trying to target to do something with them. But it will not help with promotion.
I don't know whether to thank you or not.
All right, we're gonna go on. If you ever remember, just ask again now, and, take the table again, Mrs. Fox. Policy revisions and updates. We have the review and action for the second reading for the approval of the policy. That's the stuff we have been working on now. It's really, remember, it's one document. So does anyone have a question, or if they want to, we can move to a motion to approve the second reading for the policies that we worked on.
Madam Chair, I move that we set the second reading of the policies that we worked on
Okay.
for the board session.
Thank you, Mrs. Pridgen. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Neal. Do we have any questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Those who oppose say nay. Okay, those policies have been approved. Now, what happens next? Okay,
Madam Chair, we skipped the transfers. Can we go back? Yes, ma'am.
okay, I'll go back. So what happens next is, who's gonna tell me what happens next? You, Ms. Hopper,
Oh, for the
with the
policies.
policy?
And then Ms. Hopper gets them in regular format.
Mhm,
She sends them to the School Board Association.
mhm.
They load them, then they notify Ms. Hopper when they're loaded. and then they'll send back clean copies.
Okay. Yeah, so once all of that has happened, can you notify the board that's on our website?
So, let me be clear, this is the second reading, right?
That's
So
the
there
final.
isn't a need for a third.
There's no need for a third. And so we're gonna go back up, and I apologize for the student transfers and release.
Fine. As indicated in your packet, we're requesting the outline transfers and releases of students in district as well as out of district.
We had two sets in our. packet.
Yes, ma'am. You have some additional ones that should be 2 pages. One starting with Brianna McCullum and the other page starting with Michelle Brown.
Okay. In my packet, I had two.
Okay, we had opportunity to review the student transfer request. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Reverend, thank you, Reverend Brown. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Any questions? All in favor, say aye. Those who oppose, say nay. Okay, the transfers have been approved. Okay, now we are. Hold on. We're at, we have no public participation. We're at the board comments and calendar reminders. So we started, I think we started here last. Reverend Brown, do you have any board comments? Or any community information with the calendar dates?
No, everything's fine.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Neal?
No.
Thank you, Mrs. Neal. Mrs. Bridgen? Yeah, you just asked me. Anything else for teachers?
I was wondering, I thought we had brought it to the attention. Maybe I didn't. Miss Neal and I was talking about it at the end of the board meeting about the possibility of doing something for the teachers, not monetary, but like ice cream. Just something to let them know that we we don't have that much money, but we thought if it could come out of even our board budget or anyway, I would like for the teachers to know that we do realize what a horrible year it was for them to get everything going, and they did such a terrific job, and we would just like for them to know that the board realizes that, and we do appreciate it. And being unable to go in and out of the schools this year, I just don't feel like I had any contact with my teachers, and I would like for them to understand that we would like to do something. I don't know what, but could we think about that and see if
Now they are now, except for the ones that are teaching summer school, they're gone for the summer. But normally, you talked about ice cream. Those are things we normally do. We normally have an end of the year celebration as well as an opening convocation. Last year we did virtual. This year we're planning to go back, and just so that you're aware, for instance, in the year, we would have it over at CD Joyner, big celebration, retirees, different awards, and we are looking for some more, looking at expanding our awards as well. We've already talked about a community award, a community partner, trying to just expand our recognitions. But then when we come out, we normally have the ice cream trucks, Kona Ice, and
Yeah.
every staff member gets tickets. This year, I've done a request and have not gotten it approved yet, but put my request in early. We're trying to have our convocation at the Amazing Grace Park and having an outdoor event, having it right straight at 8 o'clock in the morning. We've done outdoors before, but we did it late, and we all almost burned up that particular year. I don't know if you all remember that, but we're looking at doing an early morning and trying to figure out, what will we do? We always kick off with something. So if you have some ideas, Ms. Pridgeon, just let us know, because we do try to have something when we do that opening for teachers, whether it's some type of paraphernalia, whether it's some kind of gift certificate, breakfast. We've done different things. And so we have not gotten that far in our planning. We've just tried to identify our location in the day. And we're looking at August the 12th.
I think, we were a little concerned that we wanted to do something from the board. And
Oh,
I
okay.
think from the way you're explaining it,
It's
it's
the
coming
district.
from the district. And so that's apart from what we were talking about.
Okay. Well, you
And
all are
then we
welcome.
were told that there would be some other compensation, and then it didn't happen. So that was a concern.
Okay.
Okay.
We
I
can
don't
talk
think
about-
that, now you know what your board budget is. Your-
Yeah, that's, we even mentioned that.
Mhm.
You know what your board budget is. Now, when you talk about staff and compensation, when you times whatever you do times almost 800 people, your board budget, you would have to be very limited on what you can do. Does that make sense? And so normally, that's why we plan on using the ESSER fund, so we could do a higher amount. I think we all have an interest of doing a higher amount. But we can pull what your current budget is. I'll have Ms. Hopper, give those numbers, but
Well, it's a little bit late now.
we can always mail out
Since the
something.
teachers have gone home, we were trying to do something before they left.
Yeah.
And we thought that it was going to be done, and I think today was fine, that it was nothing done. And so, just a little bit.
I think I mentioned at the last meeting that I put it in the ESSER funds. And if you all tell us that, we can still mail out, it wouldn't be my recommendation, but if the board wants us to go ahead and do something with the hope that our funds are approved, of course, we'll do whatever necessary, either we'll keep the 1,000 or go down some. But I mean, they will still be, grateful either way, because even though they're going home, I mean, they're still getting their checks, June 15th, June 3rd.
So you're saying we can do something when they return?
That's what we were since
And they come back in August?
in August. And that first payroll, we looked at it would be the day after convocation, being able to announce whatever we did at convocation. And that next day would be a payroll. And just thought that was a good way to jump start, since we have not gotten approved.
That sounds good.
Two announcements. I remember being at one of the graduations and a council lady let us know that we were all invited to something that's going on in the park, Smith Park in Mullins this weekend. I told her I would announce it. And also, I was gonna say the Amazing Grace Park opening is coming up. How do the announcements go for the board? When something happens big, do we get to know like, hey, y'all need to be here? Or
I can add to that one. They have been very limited about the number of people that they've been inviting. They've been like inviting one per organization. So when we got it, it actually just came, or in fact, it just went to the former chair and of course coming to me. So that's what they've been doing. I don't know how they're gonna do this final one now that we're all open, because the last time they did, we weren't.
Right.
So they may do something different. I don't know, but I can ask, if, what they intend on doing, but the last time they did it, they only sent out like limited,
right.
so that was why.
Well, I'm on other organizations, so I get invites anyway, but sometimes it's good to be as the board so people can see you, like just in other communities. Because I was at Mullins and I felt out of place because I didn't know a lot of people. So I'm gonna start doing Mullins events, just to say hi. But then when y'all come to Marion, it's kind of like y'all should feel like, oh, who are you? Unless you're a community person as well, not just for the board. So I'm just saying that out loud.
Yeah, I think we want the community to know that we do support you.
Yes, yes.
That's true.
Sometimes I have to have a little more notice. Involved in quite a few things.
Right.
That's right.
And when I get the notice at the last minute,
Mhm.
Same here, same here.
So we'll inquire about that.
Notices if you were sending out the day that you get notice.
Mr. Davis.
Dr. Fay, the question I have is pertaining to the students handbook. Do they review it yearly, make adjustment, or what's in it today just gonna slide to the next year, or how do they do it?
The first thing is that, first I'll speak on the code of conduct. Ms. Rush does a good job of doing updates. Anything that needs an update is sent out with a group of stakeholders that involves parents as well. To get feedback. And then that information is updated in the code of conduct. And then based on that information, principals then are to update their school level handbook. Now, your school level handbook may have items that are in addition to code of conduct and district expectations. They may have school level information, like your school requirements. Some schools want you to have an agenda for your homework. Some schools don't do an agenda. Some schools want you to have certain things. And so there is some flexibility with your school level handbooks, but in terms of those things that go back to a policy, those things are updated at the district level and sent out to schools.
All right, this one here is my understanding that, I know we got the cameras in the hallways and whatnot. And we cannot, I understand, we can't have it in the bathroom. I'm aware of that. But now the kids is using that bathroom as their safe haven to do things they shouldn't do. Now, is there any way we can have someone to monitor the bathroom periodically to break that little cycle? Because these kids got everything timed down where they can do their bullying, their fights, or whatever in the bathroom because they know that there's no eyes there. I mean, I know. Yes. Right, but coming next year.
Dr. Thing,
Yes, ma'am.
I thought 2 years ago when I requested a camera at the entrance of the restroom, I thought they were installed. In other words, if a child went in the restroom at 9 and came out, let's say somebody beat him up in there, you can see all the people in it at that time. We don't have a camera at the entrance. I thought we were told there is one at the entrance. What did he say? They are at the entrance? Okay. So at least what I'm saying is you have a picture, you know, who went at the time the child said it got in. Just call all those folks, see that one of them, or some of them are responsible. I don't know about mothers, but now in high school, I talked that they have a separate room of nothing but cameras, a high-tech room in there. I didn't know it existed. But they allowed me to go see, and there's so many cameras and things are being recorded. I think they keep recording so many days. So that they do have the capability of at least knowing who entered at the time something happened. And that really narrows down specifically who could have been involved in whatever took place in the restroom.
We use cameras often just to
Okay.
and cameras are almost everywhere. Multiple cameras.
Mhm.
This building, more than 20 some cameras. So that we do have them and they're used, and we do have to refer to them often.
Mhm.
We actually had to watch them this afternoon for situations. So they are constantly utilized. And I think we did upgrades. I can't remember how long ago, but very high, high quality in terms of being able to identify.
I think it's a good idea to have,
Oh, well, I mean, go ahead, I'm sorry.
well,
You
I
still
was just gonna
talking about
say, I think
cameras.
it's a good idea, to have cameras monitoring, and I think that's real plus
Mhm.
to do that, but I don't think it should take the place of having bodies out there monitoring the halls too, I would think,
That's-
my experience has been, as an administrator, you know, that you had a certain responsibility of trying to make sure that your halls and your areas were safe, and so you would be there monitoring. Cameras are good, but you should have some staff and that kind of thing that are out there monitoring.
And that's the expectation, that when, anytime we have specifically, more importantly, when there are transitions that change in classroom times, adults are supposed to be in the hallways, administrators as well as teachers monitoring. But I think what Mr. Davis was asking, that, you know, make it, I guess, an extra point to sometimes just kind of walk into the restroom just to make sure they know that, hey, I'm covering here too.
I just thought that was a part of what administration did.
They do, but just the increase, they're in the hallways, at those class exchanges and near the restrooms and all. But, you know, unfortunately, they're not stationed in the restrooms, and so that's what he's stating. If we know that now there's an issue or more activity going in there, the administrators are out, but make an extra point and sometimes not just be in the hallway outside, but to actually physically walk through the restrooms more frequently.
Do we need to hire somebody specifically, because the principal can't be in the bathroom all the time, neither can the guidance counselor. Teachers have to be in the classroom. So like someone said, there are going to be times nobody just going to be able to be present at the restroom physically. Is that a new job position, or somebody will only be coming to school just to do that? Because
Yeah.
principals can't,
I wouldn't,
everybody's someplace.
I wouldn't think so. I have not heard of it being that major of a problem. I know of one incident that was recent, and it wouldn't lead me to go to that extreme yet. I have not heard of many problems with that. We just had a recent incident, and that's the only one that I've heard of this year from a restroom.
Mrs. Fox?
So if we can't hire, like Reverend Brown was just saying, somebody, and I know it's not to that extent, but what if we mandate that each bathroom door has a maximum of 2 people at a time? If you walk in into more, you see at the bigger schools, maybe at the middle schools, because I've seen a lot of fights on cameras from the middle school bathrooms, in the middle school, and the gym locker rooms, wherever the teacher is going to use the bathroom for that 3 to 4 minutes, that's the fights. And literally, if they don't make it to the office, it's because nobody's recording. And I do know, I'm a parent of children in my family has been bullied, fought, beat up, jumped in the bathrooms, and it just took that 3 minutes. But if you make it so 2 to 3 people can only be there, they need the crowd in there to make sure they did it. They're not gonna fight this with 2 people in the bathroom. You see what I'm saying? If we had at each bathroom door at the older schools, minimum of 2 people.
Well, let us go to the our administrators and let's talk about it with them that are there in the buildings and get some recommendations for them in terms of, you know, have they seen an increase and what can we do differently to better monitor the restroom activity? So we can do that.
Bullying is happening, fights are happening, children feeling threatened to go to school is happening. And I think that it's already one thing to have to go to school in the pandemic, and not just before the pandemic, but anytime you go to school and be bullied, fought, mistreated, it becomes like a cage. I don't want to go there.
And that's why we do have every day, we have a SEL component, because we do know that's a need to, even though we focus heavily on the academics, just so that students have an opportunity to talk about those emotions and things that are going on, to try to, because we do know that some kids are feeling certain kind of ways just by being virtually home and being not in that social environment. And so we are maintaining that SEL every day. Our classes begin with that social emotional before we even start academics and stuff. But we'll take that to our administrators and, you know, make them aware of the concern of the restrooms and the activity, and come up with a plan how we can better monitor the restrooms.
Where you think?
Okay, I have 2 questions. The is it called a reopening plan that they were talking about?
Safe return.
Okay, how, did we submit ours already?
No, we'll
Okay.
be posting it. It's a template. They call it a
Okay.
plan, but it's really, it's, the state has given a template and they ask questions. How are you planning to do this? How are you
Okay.
planning to do that? So it's not like that original Safe Start where we came up with all
Okay.
those dynamics. You actually have a template to work off, but we can
Okay.
provide you with a copy of what the pandemic team has worked on. And
Okay,
that'll be posted. We wanted to make you aware of it before we posted it on the website.
so it hadn't gone before the
No.
state yet?
No,
Okay, when is it due?
you have to have it posted by the 24th of June. You have to
Okay,
have it
the
posted.
reason I asked, because I saw on the news this morning that 16 have already been disapproved by the superintendent.
Mhm.
So when you post it, she goes up there and looks at it or something, or you submit it to her
No,
as
it's a
well?
template. You mash submit, and then you also have to show that you posted it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
But it is not open like it was before when you create your own. It is more of you answering questions. What we were doing is more just answering questions. So
Okay.
how are you planning to return full day? How,
Right.
you know, are you gonna have, what safety measure are you gonna have in place? What
Okay,
have you all talked about in terms of transportation, things of that nature?
okay, so that's part of what Mr. Sturkey was reporting to
about,
us.
exactly.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
The other thing, I just want the board to be made aware that I did ask Dr. Buffet for the purposes of marketing. And so if she comes back to us about a marketing plan for like billboards, I want to, say that I'm just asking a question. If we could actually put billboards of our, like our early college, our Montessori and our STEM, have billboards of those students on the parameters of the county, not in the county, but, it'll be in the county, but on the parameters. So that we could use that almost as a marketing tool. Because I know that I've noticed also on our student transfers, it seems like we have a little uptick on the Dillon children coming over here. So we might want the Dillon children or the Ori kids to know that we have a Montessori. So that was something I asked if she could, to see how much that would cost, and then we could determine if that's something that we think is valuable, so that we can let people know, we have an early college. There's some areas that are closer to us than it is to the district that may be off. So anyway, I just want to make you aware of that.
Because we've always been saying that we need to have more visibility about all of the good things that are going on in the county. It seems like still we're not quite doing to let the community know what it is that we're doing. Maybe there's a flyer or something, but everybody's not good.
Right.
I think we could do some improvement in our visibility of what we're doing.
And we'll add that to, we have a section of the strategic plan that's just based on communication, and we'll add the billboards and signage and that increase in there as well. Now, hopefully it'll keep us on track.
And maybe some publication. Not everybody does Facebook.
So true.
But I would like to know what's going
Right.
on.
That's true. And we just worked on a video for the strategic plan, and we will have a booklet with that too. But you're right, and to be able to put in local establishments as well, some doctor's office and things of that nature, just to have around when people are sitting would be good advertisement. And if you all marketing the district cannot be in isolation. We are open to ideas. If you can think of something else that we need to do, we're willing to try it, because we must change the narrative. And the only way that we're going to change the narrative is get the positive news out. So keep the ideas coming.
Okay. We have June 24th, 2021, special call meeting called budget meeting for 6 o'clock. July 5th, school districts closed for the 4th in observance of the 4th of July. third thing I had, which is calendar wise, I spoke with Dr. Bethay. Remember once we mentioned well, whether or not we were on target for everything as it relates to our meetings, and whether or not we could maybe take July and let the staff be off. I have proposed it for you to listen to, and if you don't like it, that's fine with me. But I was thinking, well, first of all, are we doing pretty well with our time?
We are. I do ask though for the next week's special call meeting, even though it's for the budget, if you would allow us to at least bring any additional personnel action to that meeting.
Oh,
then we
that's
should be good.
completely understandable. So that her doing that means that July we would be pretty much good for anything else that we may decide to do. So I was wondering, in lieu of our July 20th meeting, if we could partner with certain local government to include health organizations such as DHEC, MUSC, and healthcare partners to see if we could have vaccination. I don't know what I called it. A vaccination. I'll call it for targeting our students, so that we could hopefully increase the number of our students, and parents would be open to it. We wouldn't have to do anything but be there. We may have to help with planning. And when I say that, meaning we might have to all pitch in to communicate with our different partners and see if we could get them, say with the Eastern Stars, if y'all are open now to coming, if we can get them, if not on the 20th, on August 3rd. August 3rd would be, I think it's 2 weeks that you have to have between first shot and second. Yes, so that we could, and then all of us would have to be at one of those locations, so that we can make sure that they know that we're also part of this. Because sometimes we're there, but they might not know. I don't know if that means a T-shirt or whatever, but I was thinking if we had a vaccination clinic, say on the 20th, which is our normal board meeting, and have it, if we could, in the morning, not in the evening, but in the morning when it's nice and cool, with those healthcare partners, or with those partners who are in healthcare. We could do one in Mullins, one in Marion, one in the southern part of the county, probably at Creek Bridge, and then in 2 weeks, do another. And if we're, I don't know if we would have to look at those ESSER funds to do some type of like Walmart gift card for like $100 or something for each student that actually gets the vaccine done, because they're doing these like stipends for people they're actually doing, not stipends, what are they doing in these other states? They're actually doing they're
You talking
calling them
about-
lotteries.
They're doing incentives
They're
for
doing
people, the
incentives,
incentives.
and they're calling them lotteries or something like that. But if we could do that, and the reason I was hoping that we as a board could take the lead on this is so that we can be sure we can do everything we can possibly do to keep our doors open. Because I think right now what the county's looking like 30-something%. At first we were looking pretty good, and then all of a sudden nobody was good. So the fear is, especially with this new variant, that that is supposed to be super bad for unvaccinated children, that we could possibly, take a lead on that. And I know within this group that we could take the lead, not to do it in extension of the community, but in addition to, so we could get the long-term recovery group. I think it's 42 Foundation, they're also involved in it. And a lot of other, like I said, sororities, fraternities, to aid us in that. And then each day, those 2 dates that we're talking about, the board would be there to represent and whoever else wants to do it. We're not asking for, well, you don't really need employees other than whatever it is that you might need, like maybe a janitor or something like that, because we have to pay for that. So anyway, that was my idea. I wanted to pitch to the body.
We do have some board members who work. Not everyone's retired.
Oh, I'm one of them. I think it's 4 of us now. right?
Collins,
No, that's not retired. So, I mean, if those 2 dates were agreeable. So do y'all wanna,
July 20th.
it would be August 3rd.
And then you have a lot of college kids that be community service officers.
Mhm.
So they'll come through, if you sign off some students, there's a lot of them come through, they'll come in line.
Right. And the good thing about the gift card, that ends on no tax weekend. So if we,
We would have to do once we get the approval, we would have to amend. When you're dealing with federal funds, I know the general public just thinks that you just have the allocation you spend.
No.
But every time that you are using it for a purpose, you have to submit it back to the state to get that approval. So as soon as we get our approval, we have to wait for our approval, which again, we thought we would have had it in by now. We thought we would have had it 2 weeks ago. But we can then resubmit it for whatever type of student incentives. But I know it wouldn't cover parents. I do know
No,
that,
no, just students.
If
Just
it would
our
get approved.
district- Just our district students, not even, I don't even know. But anyway, if y'all can look at that and to include, if it's okay with the board, if we can put that back in their financial hands, so they can come up with something and how that might look, what that number may end up being.
And what is your mind on in terms of how much of the spending?
Like
have an
maybe,
idea?
and y'all tell me if I'm reaching too high, but I was thinking maybe $100 a gift card.
No, every child in this district, you have to get a job.
Well, that's the goal.
If you're supposed to have all the kids come with $100
one family.
per,
Okay,
and what that's gonna end up being.
well,
I mean-
that's what we're presenting.
I think
$25.
$25 certificate. And then maybe team up with Walmart or McDonald's to get like.
Well, like I said, I'm asking for.
Oh, yeah, you
That's
doing good. Yeah, Walmart
That's
can give
good.
you some steps. and
I think
but
that's a
I'd
good
like to
project
spend
for
money
Ms. Foxworth
locally
on
for
behalf of the
government
board to
and
get
the
a donation from Walmart.
I agree.
For 4,000 gift cards.
I second that.
But they do give, Walmart does have where they
Walmart
give
gives
so
so
much.
much. You have Bojangles, you have a lot of people that would.
Yeah, I would like to support some of the local businesses. I know those are local, but not like big conglomerates like Walmart. I mean, like maybe some local. Yes,
Yeah.
maybe some small businesses
And local
in our
government.
county would like to get in on
Yes.
It's local government.
Free rides. I think she darted at me, but yeah.
Local government, if you could speak to any county council member that you may happen to know. Maybe you could get them to actually put up and support this, because I would like
They would do it.
everybody to attend this, because this, the problem with sometimes with county, meaning the county at large, is that everyone thinks that it's our responsibility for everything alone.
Right.
But anything that happens with us as it relates to the schools closing, that's everybody's problem. And they got a nice little chunk of change too. So if we could get them to do it, and like you said, local businesses to help with that, that'd be great. It might even line up with some of the people that like to give the go back to school things. Anything we can put with it that's not so taxing, but it makes it more appealing. I think it'll be good. So we may have to be prepared to talk about it in full at the next meeting. So if that can go on the agenda.
I think we'll go to the next meeting.
No,
Plan to this
well,
July 20th.
Right.
So you're gonna have to have a meeting.
We need to get on the US scale. I mean, it's
So
June
how-
the 24th, we talk about it. We talk about June 24th. We do have a meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
June the 24th. We can have some answers by June the 24th.
Well, we gotta have our stuff organized, you're saying. by then.
And I think it can be pulled off. Let's just see how much information we can bring.
Yeah,
in.
just tell me what you, so you said you're gonna do local businesses, you're gonna do,
County Council, Walmart, Pizza Hut, and friends of my family.
okay,
I said I'm
and,
gonna do it.
in Eastern Star, and the, Lodge, and so, you know. You're not on board.
No.
I tell you what, you focus on the southern part of the county, that'll be enough. And then Reverend Brown, can you help us with the faith phase,
Help with what?
with notifying the faith phase?
Sure.
Let's get the faith, let's get the church. clear.
Church has been.
That's right. Can you repeat that again? Reverend Brown's faith base. Ms. Neal is Eastern Star
And Lodge.
Lodge.
For attorneys, that we should get people that need
Right.
hours, they'll come through. So,
Mhm.
I do it.
Okay. You said small business.
I said that.
We'll help you. Well, she's helping you anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do it.
And I'll help with the sororities and the community organizations.
So what do we call it? Get out the vaccine.
Somebody actually gave me a name. I can't remember. What was it? The pre back to school bash.
Okay.
Straight from Columbia. And Ms. Nadine's gonna do local government.
My network is good.
And Mr. Davis is gonna he's gonna target the southern part of the county.
Kind of hospital. That's local government as well, right?
Well,
Because I have contact there that would actually get you some people out here doing it. 'cause
is that MUSC?
MUSC.
And then we'll ask, well, we might have,
Ms. Linda Purnell is always willing to. work
okay,
with
let's do that.
us.
And then
She's
we'll
CEO.
We'll also talk with Dr. Bethea about the nurses, because they have their contacts too with like DEC and everything. See if they can help us with that date.
And so board members are attempting to get sponsorships of gift cards
Mhm.
and things for children,
Right,
just to have a backup plan.
right. Is that good? Okay, I had the floor way too long, so I cite myself. Okay. All right, so we're getting ready to move into executive session. We're gonna have a legal briefing, contractual matter, and personnel matter. So I need a motion.
Madam Chair, before we go into executive
Okay.
section, for the people that's looking at YouTube, can Dr. Mathay introduce the gentleman with the bow tie?
Yes, I will.
Okay,
Exactly.
I kept waiting on him to do a report. I thought you
No,
were
no,
personnel.
do that when we broke. I didn't think it was appropriate at the start of the meeting. But I would like to introduce Dr. Mark Bunch. Dr. Bunch, if you would stand up. Dr. Bunch does not officially start in his role until July 1st, but I will tell you that he's already hit the ground running from the moment I notified him that he was approved. And I appreciate that because he knows that our work in planning for next year doesn't start July 1st. We're planning now. And so he has been up here almost every day. Daily calls, is there something I need to work on and do? And I just love that level of initiative. And so we've gotten off to a very great start and look forward to him and our work together.
Okay. Congratulations. And thank you for that. I really was waiting on him to follow Grant's report or something. I didn't know what was going on.
Can you put him in there so I can see his face? Okay, good.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. So anyway, did we get a motion? We didn't get a motion for a legal briefing, contractual matters, and personnel going into executive session.
I took the motion.
So it's
for us to go to executive session for legal brief and personal matters. And whatever else you need.
Contractual matter.
Contractual.
Thank you, Mrs. Fox. Do we have a second?
A sec.
Thank you, Mrs. Pridgen. Any questions about any of the things with the items we just noted? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. We are going into executive session.
Some woman left a face mask in the restroom, like a real good.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we're going into we have a second? All in favor, say aye. Please let the record show that there was no actions taken in executive session. Can we entertain any actions that's necessary?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation of the superintendent as it pertains to teacher A with personnel.
Could y'all hear that motion? Okay, thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Thank you, Ms. Neal. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, I'm sorry, was there any question? Okay, motion carried. We have another motion.
Madam Chair, I motion that we accept Mr. Sturkey's directional operations, his bid for pest control, student insurance, and the painting open bids, right? Second.
Thank you, Ms. Foxworth. Thank you, Mrs. Pridgen. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. That motion is carried. Didn't I say that? I said that. I'm sorry. I said that. Yeah, I didn't say that then. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay. And, also for the viewing body and those in here, Reverend Brown had to leave. So she's not here. And she had to leave. So is there anything else?
I just want to say that all administrators, staff, teachers, everybody that made this school year better, great. I just thank you for everything you did. Even the board, my co-board members. Okay.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
as it is that we've enjoyed each other tonight and this has been a very profitable meeting. And we wish that we could stay here for hours and hours, but I move that we adjourn at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Neal.
I second.
Ms. Fox will second that motion. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Oh, my God.